Hey everyone, Mitch here from the Protocase team. Today I'm going to show you different ways to move objects precisely in Protocase Designer. Protocase Designer is our own free CAD software that you can use to design custom enclosures, parts, and panels to your exact specs. We make it super easy to quickly quote and order your design. Many of you have been asking for a nudging feature in Protocase Designer, and that makes sense, as most CAD softwares allow you to nudge objects. Our development team is working on adding this feature soon, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, until nudging is fully live in Protocase Designer, I want to show you different ways to move objects precisely in the 2D editor. My first tip is to customize the grid in the face editor. Of course, you can turn on the snap to grid so that objects can be snapped to the grid lines automatically for you. But beyond that, you can also change the grid size and offset to be whatever dimensions that work best for your design. One important tip: be sure to check Save as Default Grid Size if you want this to be your grid size after doing your work in the face editor. Because if not, once you go back to the 3D viewer and then edit another face of your design, those grid settings you changed will not be there. The second way to control exactly where an object is placed is using the Measure tool. The Measure tool allows you to measure between 2 points on a face and move and/or align object in relation to another one. Let's walk through an example. First, I'll show you the grid option. To start, let's select a face to edit. Click your Edit Face button on the left-hand side. Select the face you wish to edit. Up at the top, you'll see grid options. First, we'll select to show the grid. Next, we can select to snap to grid or not. This will allow our cutouts to directly snap to a point on the grid. We can also change the size of the grid by clicking Size. Here you can set the width and height in inches, as well as an offset width and height, a grid opacity, and as mentioned, if you want to save this as your default grid size, check the Save as Default Grid Size button. That way, when you edit another face, you still have the same grid settings. To move a cutout using the Measure tool, first select the Edit Face button on the left-hand side of your screen. Next, select the face you wish to edit. Add a cutout to the face you're editing. Select the Measure tool and select a first point. Next, select your cutout. In the X and Y difference, the cutout will move with respect to your first selected point. So I'll move this cutout 2 inches from the selected point on the X, and I want it to be in line with the Y. So I set it to 0. Next up, you can change the value of the X and Y origins of an object in order to move it with respect to the absolute coordinate system. The origin of an object is always indicated by a red square. One thing to note, object types have different origins. The origin of an ellipse and a circle is the center. The origin of a rectangle is the closest corner to the absolute origin. For both text and images, the origin is the bottom left corner. For paths and lines, the origin is the start point. Let me show you an example of moving an object by changing its origin. Next, I'm going to put down a few different cutouts. Once my cutouts are placed, I'll select one of the cutouts. You see there's a red dot. That indicates the origin point of the cutout. If we look on the Properties panel on the right-hand side of the screen, we see Origin X and Origin Y. This is the distance from the cutout's origin point with respect to our absolute coordinate system, which has a 0 point, typically the bottom left of a part. I can adjust these numbers to be 2 inches in the Y and 1.5 inches from the X. If I select the rectangular cutout, you see the origin on the rectangular cutout is towards the bottom left corner. Again, I can update these numbers. And a line has its origin point wherever you started the line from. Finally, if you're looking to precisely space cutouts or align them horizontally or vertically, align and distribute commands are your best bet. We've got a Proto Tech Tip on each of these functions. Check out the link below in the description. Basically, the align and distribute tools allow you to move 2 or more cutouts in specific ways based on distributing the space between each object equally or aligning 2 objects based off an origin or an edge with respect to your first selected object. Let's go through a quick example. I'll place down a few different cutouts. I'll select the Move tool. Holding Shift, I will select 3 cutouts that I've placed. Looking on the right-hand side at my Properties panel, I can see I can align these cutouts vertically based on their origins, based on their left side, their centers, or their right sides. I'll align these based on their origins. Next, I want to make sure each cutout has equal spacing between them. With my 3 cutouts selected, I'll go over to the Properties panel, scroll down to Distribute, and I'll distribute the origins vertically. So there's equal space between each of the origins. You can also distribute space from their tops, their centers, bottoms, as well as horizontally. Next, I'm going to align these 3 cutouts horizontally. With my 3 cutouts selected, I'll go over to the Properties panel and select the Align About Origins. As you can see, each of my cutouts aligned so that their origin points are in line. The first cutout you select is anchored. The other cutouts will move with respect to your first selected cutout. So, as we covered today, there are a few different ways you can precisely control the placement of your objects in Protocase Designer. For more information, check out our other Proto Tech Tips. Our wiki has full instructions on how to use these functions too. The Protocase Designer forum is a great place to ask questions or chat with other designers. Links to all of those tools and resources are below. Thanks very much for watching this week's Proto Tech Tip. See you back next week.